Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Yes Shift. It's just me, Steven Schinder, for this particular one. Um, Sorry, I almost forgot to play the intro music for this. But yeah, I'm here to talk about a few concerts that I saw over this weekend, both online and in person. And yeah, really cool stuff to talk about. So I watched the live stream of Total Mass Retain's show that they did at the Williams Center in New Jersey. And afterward, I went to Pershing Square here in Los Angeles to see this Forever 80s concert that featured various bands. But when I got there, I was able to catch When in Rome, UK and Asia featuring John Payne. And I also want to talk about a couple uh, Asia clips from over the original Asia page that I saw as well. So, talking a bit about both of the bands, I guess. And then there's also a video that got posted on the Trevor Horn YouTube channel, The Buggles Live from Las Vegas, June 2nd, 2023. It's a 35-minute video available apparently for a limited time. So I'm going to talk about that at the very end in case anyone wants to watch that before hearing my thoughts on it. So yeah, after I talk about all those other bands, you can uh, either keep watching or pause and come back to the archive later after watching that Trevor Horn video. The occasion for that is that today is Trevor Horn's birthday. Dad and I talked about Trevor Horn, Peter Banks, and Igor Koroshev's birthdays a few days ago when they were upcoming birthdays. So we talked a little bit about the keyboard bits on the latter, Peter Banks's era in Yes, and bits from those albums that we'd like to see played live in the near future. And we also talked about Reimagines the 80s and Echoes Ancient and Modern, both Trevor Horn projects with interesting covers on them. So yeah, that was on our third anniversary show last week. And then the day after that, we had John Perez, the drummer from Close to the Yes USA. And yesterday was his birthday. And funny enough, the day that we had him on our show was, I think, a year after we had Joe Cass from Total Mass Retain on our show to talk about that tribute band as well. But yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on with tribute bands. If you check out the interview with John Perez, we talk about the upcoming August 24th show that they are having with Rush tribute band Clockwork Angels. And last Saturday was also when Awaken played their final 9012 live show. So it's cool that they were able to represent that era of the band. And I also saw that. Let me see this real quick. Wait, what is this? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. So sorry, I got distracted by something. So where was I? Oh yes. So I guess I'll get back to talking about these concerts that I saw. Sometimes I do Steven's vinyl adventures and talking about vinyl records, but I came up with a name for this thing where I talk about concerts, Steven's venue adventures. I kind of like the ring of it, the alliteration, but I don't know if that properly counts for this since a couple of these shows were online. Like I said, the Pershing Square show was in person, but Total Mass Retain and the Buggles thing were both online. But yeah, I'll go ahead and start with the Total Mass Retain show. I gotta remember to share these into groups. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so the Total Master Tane show was streamed on the Stageit website via the ProgStock account, and they always put on a good show. Let me just pull up the set list on my phone real quick. So the tour the string of shows that they've been doing lately is the Yes album plus epics and rarities. And so for the set list, so when I tuned in, it was like 4:30 p.m. my time on Saturday, and they were getting set up. And when they got on stage, they had the Firebird Suite playing, classic Yes right there. And then they started their set proper with parallels, really injecting the energy like right from the start. Joel Simkis was doing the mixing, like working the mixing as I understand it. And at first, the you could hear the backing vocals a bit better than the fronting vocals, but that got sorted out. And yeah, the rest of the show sounded really good, and parallels as well, I should say. But yeah, really strong opening. Then they did Wondrous Stories, so starting off with a couple going for the one tracks, and then they went into the Yes album, playing that entire album. So they start with Yours Is No Disgrace, and again, like really strong openings for this set. Then they of course, next on the album is Clap, and Johnny Bruns, the guitarist, told this story of back when he was doing rehearsals for Yes. I think filling in for Steve Howe before he showed up for rehearsals. I think this might have been in the present tour, if I'm not mistaken. um so yeah, he told this funny story of Alan and Chris joking around, and one of them's like, he's singing pretty well there, and the other one says, if Steve doesn't want to do the tour, we'll get Johnny. And and Johnny, he was very clear on how like this was a ribbing, like not to read too much into it type thing. But yeah, it is pretty funny, and Johnny does do a great job playing the Yes material, like either way. So it's cool that Total Master Tane have them in their band. And of course, he, I believe, was with John Davison in the tribute band Roundabout back in the 2000s, and then was later in Yoso and Circa. So there are connections there. But yeah, he played Clap and played it pretty well. And then next was Starship Trooper, and they said like this is a funny one to do in the middle of the show, but it's how the album is. And that really got me thinking, because Starship Trooper, we are so used to that being a the closing encore of the Yes show, but here it is like smack dab in the middle of the Yes album, end of side one. So I guess technically an ending to that, but in the order of the track list, it is right in the middle. So it kind of made me wonder if Yes had the hindsight knowing that it would be such a well-known song to end Yes concerts with, would they have had Starship Trooper as the closing track? And how would that affect the rest of the Yes album? Would the closing track of side A be Perpetual Change, and then side B is I've Seen All Good People, Adventure, Starship Trooper? Or would they have maybe ended with I've Seen All Good People and on side A, and then side B would be Perpetual Change, Adventure, Starship Trooper? Because I think Adventure, for me, I can't really see it working quite as well as an opening track for either side. So I feel like Clap and Adventure each have to be the middle tracks of a different side. Clap works as the second track because it's the introduction of Steve Howe, or after doing Yours Is No Disgrace. I guess side A could have began with I've Seen All Good People, and then that's a good showcase of Steve, and then go into Clap, and then maybe end side A with either Yours Is No Disgrace or Perpetual Change, and side B would begin with all those, and yada yada yada. So there's different configurations that you could go with there. But yeah, so they played they did the 1984 intro bit. So yeah, that sound where it's like do 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 do, kind of like on 9012 Live, and then they played like all of Starship Trooper, and it's such a great song. And it was kind of weird hearing it as the closing song, or not as the closing song, rather. You get so used to that being the ending. It'd be kind of like playing a roundabout in the middle of the concert, which I think Yes did on the 3 albums tour. Yeah, so then they played I've Seen All Good People. I think one of them, it might have been Joe, mentioned having been to 6 John Anderson concerts, John and the Band Geeks, and, gave a huge rec to that. But yeah, they played I've Seen All Good People. Then they played Adventure, which was accidentally referred to as Awaken before like getting corrected. Again, because of having been to 6 John Anderson concerts, I guess is such a whirlwind type thing. But that did make me think about how the piano bits of Adventure do kind of remind me of Awaken in a way. It's kind of like a somewhat of a relative to Awaken, even though they're so far apart in the chronology of Yes. And they played the extended outro that you hear on a version of Adventure that came out in one of the Yes album re-releases. So you get the full song. And then they closed that first set with Perpetual Change, which includes a little drum solo, and such a great track to close the set with. And again, they're doing the Yes album in order. And yeah, so during the intermission, there was a playlist I was playing, and it began with Small Beginnings by Flash. I recognized it right away. I was like, wait a minute, this is a Flash song. So you get a bit of Peter Banks representation there. And again, happy heavenly birthday to Peter Banks today. And there were some other interesting proggy songs that were played during this intermission, on this playlist. I'm trying to pull up where I have these down. So there was What Do You Want From Life by The Tubes, Tomorrow Never Knows, a cover of that Beatles song by Phil Manzanera, World Turning by Fleetwood Mac, You, Yes, Yes, Yes by The Residents, and I think Knife Edge by ELP was also played at one point. And so then once Total Mass Retain returned to the stage, I almost said Total Mass Return right there. They began with Close to the Edge. What an epic track to begin that second set with. And again, the second set is epics and rarities. And they really knocked it out of the park right there. Then they did an interesting medley. They began with this medley with 5% for Nothing, which has always sounded quite strange in the live setting, even when Yes finally tried it back on the 3 albums tour. It sounds pretty fascinating on Fragile, but whenever it's played live, it kind of translates a bit weird to me. Not to say it's not already weird on Fragile, but I feel like it's really tough to emulate it in a way that feels more like the album, if that makes sense. But anyway, they go from that to Long Distance Runaround, which, is kind of like on the Fragile album, and then to The Fish, which ended up being, somewhat of a White Fish type thing. It segued into a bit of Tempest Fugit and On the Silent Wings of Freedom, those instrumental bits. And there was a moment where I heard the chanting and recognized it from that is, a day, day. I'm not really sure what the words are in that chanting, but I recognized it, and the drumming was reminiscent of that particular bit. It was only for a few seconds, but yeah, it was a tiny bit of that is. Then they said, on drums, Mr. Alan White, it's so great to be with you tonight. Doing that little bit of hold on, and then doing a tiny bit of mind drive with the, and all these last couple things were really quick, but then they segued into Sound Chaser, and like what a way to, that was a longer section that they did with Sound Chaser, but what a way to conclude that medley. It's really cool how they were able to make that work. I think if it were me, I would have included a little bit more of that is and Mind Drive, but as a Yes fan who wants more of that era represented, I just want it all. So, but the fact that they were able to pull this medley off is really cool. Then they mentioned that it was Randy's 1-year anniversary in the band. I think Randy is the bassist, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I'm like looking at all sorts of different things and, just trying to keep things in order. So apologies if I seem all over the place. But yeah, Randy is the bassist, and it's his 1-year anniversary in the band during that concert. So then they played And You and I, dedicating it to those who have passed away, and mentioning Chris, Alan, and of course Peter Banks. And what was interesting is during this performance of And You and I could hear the backing vocals, during the Coins and Crosses section more clearly than I tend to hear it during Yes concerts, because if you're looking at the lyrics sheet for And You and I, you see the lyrics are side by side with different paths, but here I could hear like the backing vocals more clearly than ever before. Also, apparently, Chris's wife, Scotland, may have been watching this concert. They did a mention of that, and they played a little bit of You By My Side. It was just the piano bit, and I think Joe may have been on vocals during this. It was very beautiful. And then they closed the set with Ritual. What an epic way to close the whole thing. And from what I understand, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. And so they mentioned that there's going to be a Rock the Mountain Festival in August, and I think this is in Seattle, and they said that while they're in Seattle, they figure they might as well do an Alan White tribute show, so they're coordinating with the White family. So looking forward to seeing what news comes of that. And and of course in autumn is the John Anderson 80th birthday tribute shows. So Total Mass Retain, I guess, will be playing a set list that'll be very John Anderson centric. I'm really curious about what that's going to be like. And after the show, the track that was playing was Days of Wonder, Chris Squire and Billy Sherwood piece there. Something for the audience to hear while everything's like getting cleared out and whatnot. So yeah, I'm really glad I was able to make it to that stream and be able to watch it. It was really cool. So after the stream, I went to Pershing Square in Los Angeles. It's this public park, but it's also a venue. And, I'd never been to this park before, so I wasn't sure what the setup was going to be like. But there's kind of like a little colorful wall as a barrier for part of it. And they put up also like a metal fence thing, with a diagonal pattern and whatnot around a corner. So the way it worked was you register for this Forever 80s concert event via Eventbrite, and then you show security the QR code from your ticket, and they do the check-in, let you in. And yeah, it was this park. There were some booths that were selling food and drinks. It seemed a little bit like a few bucks more than I would typically pay for the food. There were hot dogs, there were quesadillas and burritos and stuff like that. There were sodas and like some other drinks. But yeah, this show had kind of a different vibe than I'm used to for concerts I typically go to. I typically go to prog rock concerts or something, sometimes jazz, maybe a couple of pop, but here, there, it felt more like, I don't know, like if I feel like when the concerts I'm used to going to are where people know who the artists are and they have somewhat of an idea of what their history is like. But here, it kind of felt like it was more of a general thing. Like, even if people don't know the artists, they want to see this 80s music performed. And, maybe they'll just know the song and they just want to see the song regardless of not knowing the history. But yeah, there were even a couple women of a couple different generations dancing along to the songs. So it really shows that music really unites people. But yeah, there were a lot of different acts at this show. From what I understand, there was something like, I guess Efren Ramirez, who played Pedro, might have been here, because I'm looking at the poster and it says Napoleon Dynamite's 20-year anniversary with Pedro, and it puts Pedro in air quotes and shows Efren Ramirez's name. And again, this show was from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., but I couldn't go earlier because A, it would have been a bit too warm for my comfort, and B, I wanted to be able to watch a Total Master Tane live stream. I do really enjoy the Napoleon Dynamite movie, so I am kind of curious what that was like what actually happened there. But yeah, you got other people who were there, like right here it says Ultimate 80s Band with special guests The Reflex, Lowrider and Ghostbusters, Chazzy Green of War, and Ray Parker Jr. And you also got Always Something There to Remind Me, Naked Eyes. And I should mention as well that this concert was free. So people could just register on Eventbrite and they'll just automatically be able to go to this concert. You also had Farrington and Mann's The Promise, When in Rome, UK. And the main headliner, right here on the poster, it says the song title Heat of the Moment, and then Asia, big letters, and then under that featuring John Payne. So all that is on this banner that I'm looking at on the Eventbrite page of Forever 80s Live. This is by Diversity Concerts. It's Diversity spelled with a C, so it's like Diversity, so kind of clever. And I'm not that familiar with When in Rome, so when I got there, I did not know what song was being played. But when there were these two vertical screens on each side of the stage, in front of the stage was a sort of VIP section where there were people closer to the stage, and behind them was a little fence thing, and people would be standing behind the fence or spread more around through the park, sitting on there are places to sit, like these block things that you could sit on, these block rectangle things, and some people are just standing around and really enjoying the music. Like, people are really into the music at this thing. But once I knew that it was When in Rome on stage, that's when I started trying, with each song, trying to Google the lyrics and figure out what songs are being played. So the first one I was able to do that with was Wide, Wide Sea. I think I figured that one out by, I would hear the lyrics, but for that particular one, at first I thought they were saying YYZ, and I was like, wait, what? Like the Rush song? But like once I knew it was When in Rome, I looked up their first album and saw the song title Wide, Wide Sea. Oh, okay. So I think I arrived at the park either the song before that or two songs before that. But yeah, they played Wide, Wide Sea, and then sang a little bit of The Promise, which I recognized from the end of Napoleon Dynamite. And then they played a couple covers, which kind of surprised me. They played Don't Stop the Dance, which is a Brian Ferry song, I believe. And then American Dream, which is an MKTO song. And then like the cover songs took me off guard because I had to do a bit more Googling on my phone trying to figure out like what songs these were. So then they played another one of their own songs, To Fix Us. And then Human Nature, which they said is from the new album that's coming out at the end of the year. And then they played Heaven Knows, which I think is another one of their own songs. And then they covered Lowrider, and then they played the Ghostbusters theme song. Who got called Ghostbusters? Like they played the whole thing. The saxophonist was really into it. And then they played a cover of Captain of Her Heart by The Double. Thought that was very interesting. And then they played all of The Promise, because how could they not if they're there? And then they played a bit of All the Tired Horses, so a cover of a Bob Dylan song, I believe. And I would say for the last several songs of their set, I felt really confused because I felt like, wait, when is this set ending? Because, before going to this thing, I'd heard, from what I understand, it was a very last minute thing adding Asia featuring John Payne to this 80s concert. So when I found out last minute that was happening, I read that they were going on at 9, and then I read they end at 9:30, and I took that to mean that, okay, it's a half-hour set and it ends at 9:30. But When in Rome, UK, were playing at 8:30ish when I got there, and then still playing like up to 9:30, maybe even slightly past that. And so I was really confused. And I would say from Lowrider through All the Tired Horses, like the last 5 songs or so felt to me like, okay, the set is ending. Right? Is the set ending? Is this the end of it? So I was really confused. But in hindsight, I really wish that I wasn't in that mindset, because the music was really good, and everyone was enjoying it, and I was getting really into it, and getting more into the When in Rome music. And so yeah, there was a bit on my mind during this set that maybe not enjoy it quite to the fullest, and because I was really confused about what was happening when, but I shouldn't have been. And looking into When in Rome, I understand that there's also some name related thing with the band. You got When in Rome back when they were the original band, and then there were a couple changes. So there's When in Rome 2, which features the original keyboardist Michael Floriel, and When in Rome UK includes Clive Farrington and Andrew Mann from the original lineup. So I guess there's like a huge thing there with the names. And the screen at one point said original members of When in Rome UK. So again, like the whole name situation is not unique to ES or Asia. Like there's been various bands I've dealt with this sort of thing. And I remember reading about a couple others somewhat recently. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to check out more of that original When in Rome album and see what else I can find. But yeah, they did a really great job conveying the 80s vibe, and I'm honestly surprised that they weren't the end of this whole 80s music fest thing. And since Asia featuring John Payne was added last minute, I'm sure that When in Rome UK was intended to be the closer. And but what was kind of funny about having Asia featuring John Payne follow them is that uh, that particular set features 90s tracks from the Payne era. So it was kind of like moving out of the 80s and getting into the 90s. So then we get into the Asia featuring John Payne set. And the person who was introducing the band and emceeing them, I guess you could say, was saying, so the thing he said as he was introducing them was, these guys right here formed in 1981, and they did, and that kind of threw me off because, none of the original members of Asia are part of Asia featuring John Payne. And, obviously someone like me who knows the history is going to know that. But I feel like this particular show had lots of people who probably did not know the intricacies of the history of Asia. I did overhear someone tell someone else that Asia is a favorite band of someone they know, right behind Yes. So I was kind of wondering if they knew, and the people who were, I feel like this is a very general audience who might just be there for heat of the moment and maybe just know the song and don't know all the membership details and the split that happened in the 2000s. Because, back in 2006, 2007, around then, Jeff Downes left John Payne to reunite with the original Asia lineup. And at that time, the original Asia lineup did agree contractually that John Payne could tour as Asia featuring John Payne, playing Payne era Asia material and some stuff before his era, I suppose. So there is that agreement, and Payne is able to play this stuff. But yeah, I feel like the person who introduced them probably only read like the first couple sentences of like the Asia Wikipedia article, maybe even right before the set. I kind of feel like it, like, I don't know, like I had this feeling where it's like, I really wish I could, that the audience like knew the history of Asia, but I know not everyone is like that. Some people love learning the history of the bands, and some people just enjoy the music and just go into it and dance to it and whatnot. And I'm not saying there's like a right or wrong way to experience music, but I think it provided me with some food for thought that made me not feel like I was quite in the moment, which, I mean, heat of the moment, as I would like to have been during this set. But to be fair, the songs were played very well. They were rocking, and John Payne was encouraging the audience to be energetic and whatnot, and they were really into it. So the set started with Who Will Stop the Rain, which was from the Aqua album, released in 1992. Then it shifted into Anytime, which was the single from Aria, released 30 years ago. So this year, John Payne has been celebrating the 30th anniversary of that album. And then moved on to another Aqua track, which is Don't Call Me. And then into Military Man from Aria. And, that was dedicated to people who serve in the military. And then the band moved into Only Time Will Tell. And I saw someone, she was mouthing the lyrics, someone who was in the VIP section in front of the stage. So people were really into this. And then Heat of the Moment, of course, the most well-known Asia song. So closed with the two hit songs from that original album. And like I said, this experience, I felt like a fish out of water at this particular venue and this particular crowd. Because if I go to an Asia concert or a Yes concert, I feel like I mean, I don't know. Maybe it varies because both times I've seen Asia, they were not alone. They were either with Yes in 2009 or with uh, Yes plus John Lodge and Carl Palmer on the Royal Affair tour in 2019. At those particular concerts, I got the sense that people going to these concerts know, at least the broad strokes of the Asia membership history. Um, same thing with Yes concerts. Although there was that time I went to a Yes concert a couple years ago, and someone was kind of out of the loop in regards to the membership, or at least a few people, I think. So I don't know, maybe people do just go to these concerts to hear the songs that they sort of know or know from the radio. I kind of wonder what the proportion of that is like for a concert where it's just Asia or Asia featuring John Payne, either band. But here at this 80s themed festival type thing, I kind of got the sense that lots of people are there just, to chill and vibe to the music, and maybe they don't know much about the intricacies of any of these bands. And I could be wrong, but that was just kind of the vibe that I sort of assumed. And I guess I was just like thinking, I had all that distracting me in my head during some of this set, trying to think that over. But again, I'm glad that the 90s, the Payne era stuff is being represented. And of course, there's Payne era stuff from the 2000s that could be played. But if it were up to me, this was such a short set, just a half hour. And I don't know if other Asia featuring John Payne sets are longer, but I kind of wish that Only Time Will Tell and Heat of the Moment could have been swapped out for a couple other Payne era Asia cuts, maybe a couple more songs from Aria, since that's having its 30th anniversary. And I mean, I know that this is an 80s themed concert, so maybe they were only allowed to play because of Heat of the Moment, in which case, I kind of wish maybe that could have been the only 80s track and maybe one more 90s Asia track. But yeah, it is what it is. So it felt kind of like a strange experience, but I am glad that I got to see Asia featuring John Payne to see what it's like. But yeah, I would say that Pershing Square show was probably one of the strangest shows that I've felt watching. Just the overall vibe and atmosphere, and like the other things that I mentioned. And people were, as they were walking out of the park, I did hear someone like singing Heat of the Moment to themselves. I should mention that in between the When in Rome and Asia sets, there was the and it did say Asia featuring John Payne on the screen during the show. Right before that, though, during the intermission, I think it only said Asia, and I'm sure that's like the promoters and whatnot, and but during the intermission, Video Killed the Radio Star was one of the 80s songs that was being played on this playlist, and I overheard someone else singing along to it. So, another connection there, Jeff Downes, Trevor Horn. But while on that subject, I do want to talk about the clips I've seen that have been posted on the original Asia Facebook page. So they have shared, and this is the lineup of Jeff Downes, Harry Whitley, John Mitchell, and Virgil Donati. They're doing their Heat of the Moment tour, and they're over on the East Coast, so they wouldn't have been able to make it to this Pershing Square show if they were asked. Just logistically, they wouldn't have been able to. So over on the original Asia page, I've been posting some nice footage. They posted a full video of Only Time Will Tell, and it looks and sounds amazing. You get the different angles, and everyone is energetic and in top form. And they also posted a montage of snippets from different songs that they were performing, that lineup. So that included An Extraordinary Life, Voice of America, Only Time Will Tell, Time and Time Again, Cutting It Fine, Video Kill the Radio Star. I guess they're still playing that as a tip of the hat to the Buggles period for Jeff Downes, and The Smile Has Left Your Eyes. And I also saw that last weekend they played a show. I think this was in Bethlehem, and Annie Haslam was there. They were singing the Icon song in the end, which is a closing track on that first Icon album. So, that John Wetton and Jeff Downes partnership. And I think John Mitchell was singing on that one. And they also had Thijs van Leer from Focus playing flute on that. So it's really cool, like having that combination of musicians there. So yeah, I really do hope that Asia lineup is able to make it out to the West Coast in the near future. We had Harry and John Mitchell on our show earlier this month, or actually I think it was toward the end of last month, now that I think about it, talking about the tour, and they said it's not a one-off. So to me, it sounds like there is a chance that they could come to the West Coast possibly in the future. I heard that Roger Dean, for I think logistical reasons, wasn't able to make it to some of the first few shows of this tour, with his gallery and whatnot. So I'm curious to see if that still happens in this tour. And, it's happening pretty far from me, so I don't know all the details of the tour. But yeah, that tour has Focus, Asia, Martin Turner, and what was the fourth one? I feel like I always forget the fourth one, and then I feel silly for not remembering right away. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah, Curved Air. Yeah. Yeah, of course it was Curved Air. Yeah, it's been a long morning. But yeah, again, hope that they able to make it to the West Coast sometime in the future. Let's see. And just real quickly, something I forgot to mention earlier was, during the Total Master Tane review was, there were announcements of, who's going to be at ProgStock. So that includes, I'm just looking at ProgStock.com for this. Abacab, The Music of Genesis, Advent Horizon, Circuline, Dave Bainbridge and Sally Manier, the David Cross Band. Oh, we actually had David Cross on our show a while back. And Annie Haslam a while back as well, who recently announced was doing a Renaissance farewell tour. So go ahead and check that out. But yeah, getting back to ProgStock, Gong, John Mitchell and Jez Fielder, Kairos, Life Signs, Melanie Mao and Martin Schnella, Michael and Saren Sadler, Patrick Mraz, he's going to be at ProgStock again, Riddell, Rachel Flowers, Saga, and 6x6, which includes Nigel Glockler. So I believe that happens, I believe that ProgStock thing happens in October. October 17th through 20th. And you can check out the schedule at ProgStock.com. So now I want to get to the Trevor Horn Buggles concert. So last summer, he opened for Seal. I was able to see them in Los Angeles. So, you had Trevor Horn's band playing Buggles material, and then Trevor Horn's band backed up Seal, and it was such an incredible concert. So over on the Trevor Horn YouTube channel, you have the Las Vegas concert, which was a few days before the one I went to. And let me just, one sec. Okay. So yeah, this is a 35-minute video that's on the Trevor Horn YouTube channel for a limited time. And this included two tribes living in a plastic age, Elstree, I Am a Camera, which is a Buggles version of the Yes song from Drama, which at the start of that in this video, it sounded like there was a sample of the intro to Close to the Edge, with the nature sounds, which I did not notice when I saw this show in Los Angeles last year. Then there was the Art of Noise, Close to the Edit, and then, of course, Owner of a Lonely Heart. And then Trevor Horn told a story that kind of took me off guard. You need to go to the video to hear it, but the ending of the story was like him telling this person, "Oh, you might know me for this song," and it was "Video Killed the Radio Star." So you got to include that for the Buckle set, of course. The first music video on MTV, which I overheard someone at the Forever 80s show mentioning that they knew that. So yeah, this is a really well edited, well shot show. It got great angles of each of the people on the different instruments, and the lighting is good, and Trevor sounds great. This really brought me back to seeing that show last year, and I'm wondering why this is available only for a limited time. Is there some sort of official release plan for this? Would this be like a 35-minute DVD that gets put out, or what's the deal with that? Or would it be an online on demand type thing? I don't know, but the songs sound really great, so I hope that it finds a home somewhere and people will be able to experience this show, because it deserves to be experienced. It's really good. So yeah, happy birthday to Trevor Horn. And yeah, it's quite a collection of shows I was able to talk about there. You got 70s, 80s, even a bit of 90s stuff represented. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you tuned in live or are tuning in after the fact. And tomorrow, Dad and I will be live on the S Shift at 4:30 p.m. Pacific. I think is tentatively when we're going to go on. Talking about Heaven and Earth 10 years after its release. So I think that'll be a really interesting discussion. I'm wearing this 80s-esque shirt right now. It says 87 right here. It kind of looks like Dark Side of the Moon if it came out in the 80s or something. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. You can follow Yes Shift via @YesShift on YouTube, Facebook. You can search a Yes Shift on a podcast app. You'll probably find us. And you can write to us via yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com and let us know. I don't know, give us feedback and whatnot. But yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll see you all soon.